Welcome everybody, and thanks for being so flexible and being able to move around. So I'm just thinking on my feet a bit to how to do something useful with quite so many people, but I appreciate the interest. Could I perhaps just start by asking whether people have done any specific training in motivational interviewing at this time? Some people might have done something, maybe some introductory stuff. Has anybody heard or read anything about it? Got a bit of an idea about MI? A few more people? So some people, this might be brand new information. Would that be fair to say too? Yeah, a few people on that. Yeah. Okay. So what I think I'll try and do is I'll start off by doing a bit of talking about MI broadly, and then what I think are perhaps some of the useful things in it that might relate to the kind of work that you're doing, or indeed that you might find helpful if you're actually looking for services as well. And then if we can change things a little bit, I'll try and shift, so I'm not doing quite so much of the talking, and I'll give you a chance just to try a few strategies and exercises that we might use in the process of motivational interviewing. How would that sound? It would mean you'd have to talk to the person next to you. Would that be okay? If you don't want to, now would be a good time to move to another table.
You won't offend anybody.
Of course, if you do move now, people are going to wonder, aren't they, why you're doing that? So you can't win, really. So, all right, well, let's try that and we'll see where we get to. If we have enough time towards the end, I might even look to ask for a volunteer for somebody who might want to talk to me and maybe do a little quick demo of what MI might look like in action. Would that be something people would be interested in too? Just to give you a bit of a sense of it? Okay. We'll see how we go. Bridget, what's our scheduled finish time? Or has Bridget left the building?
It's 12:30.
12:30 in the... Okay. All right. We better get on with it then. When I think about motivational interviewing, there's a few kind of key things that really resonate with me, and one of them, if I could just try and put you in touch with first of all, is this idea that it looks and feels very much like two people having a conversation when motivational interviewing is being used well. So in that sense, it has a real notion that there is a partnership between two people. There's expertise amongst those people, but it's not one that we would look or hope that there was a power difference in that relationship. There's aimed very much at the spirit of collaboration and the recognition that both parties are bringing expertise and skill to a conversation. And so that conversation is focused fairly specifically on the idea that one person has a need or some goals or a problem, and they're working with someone else to help find a solution, but a solution that's going to be meaningful for that person in the context of their own life. So what does change mean to that person, and what would that change look like? So very individualised. Motivation interviewing started out in about the 80s, a bit earlier, but some of the research didn't come along until later. It's got a very strong focus on having an evidence base. So saying, maybe it feels good to do, people seem to like it, but what is it about MI that's actually helpful? And what are the kind of areas that motivational interviewing might be useful in? And so it kind of originated in the alcohol and other drug field and had a few kind of outcome studies related to it, and later many studies that looked more at the process also of MI. What do people do that can be helpful for others in the change process? So there's a range of things that have been looked at. You can see from the graph that through the 90s there was an increase in the number of studies, and then through 2000 and still a much greater number of studies starting to look not just at alcohol and other drug field, but checking to see where MI can be effective and helpful. And there's a whole range of areas now you can see that it's been applied to. So looking at people who are having problems with alcohol, issues related to health promotion, chronic condition self-management. So that might relate to diabetes, other drug use, gambling, smoking. If you're coming into contact with people who have multiple and complex needs, as many of you would be, what I've found, I guess, working in that area is that MI can be really useful across a whole range of places, not just because it's something I like, but because it can also demonstrate efficacy in those areas. So that's pretty important for me to know that what we're doing actually has a growing and robust base of evidence for it. And there have been a number of meta-analyses now. So research looking at the research is what this is, starting to find out what might be helpful. And there's 4 of them. The slides will be available in a handout off the website if you want to have a look at some of these. I don't intend to go and prattle on too much about the research, but I think it's worth knowing that it has one. Okay, and if you want to look deeper, you can. And some of the themes that came out of those meta-analyses are saying that MI has a clearly generated and substantial and increasing evidence base to talk about the fact that it can be effective. But here's a couple of really recent studies that have come out, and I think they're just worth commenting on. Colin McKenzie is also a member of, works out of the Ballarat Hospital, does a lot of work in the area of mental health and complex conditions that people have. But I imagine your experience is that the people you work with have got a whole range of challenges in their lives, okay? They might be related to health as well as, we heard this morning, housing and just how complex those things can be. They looked at the use of motivational interviewing, where they actually used a measure called the Mighty. It's a tool for measuring what clinicians are doing and the standard of their motivational interviewing, so they could tell that it was good stuff happening, and found that it was particularly helpful in working with people. You guys should be running this, you know how to operate everything. Particularly useful for people with complex conditions in that change process. And more recently, looking in the area of mental health, randomised controlled trials, it's kind of gold standard of research, where people are put randomly into different types of treatment modalities, where they compared cognitive behaviour therapy for the treatment of anxiety with a combination of motivational interviewing and CBT. And what they found is that at 12 months, those people that received the combined treatment approach of MI and CBT were 5 times more likely to be symptom-free at 12 months. That's a pretty powerful difference. Some of the other studies we've seen come out of the drug and alcohol field tell us that the type of therapy, when they compare MI with others, at 12 months they typically end up at the same kind of place in terms of outcomes, but MI often gets there faster. Other studies have looked at, well, what is it about MI particularly that can be helpful, and what they're seeing more and more is when it's blended with other kinds of treatment, it actually increases its effectiveness and is likely to see those effects sustained. And one of the key things that comes out of a range of different areas of research is that MI is helpful because people who have complex needs tend to be really challenged and overwhelmed at times by that. Maybe they might feel silly, mistrustful, judged by other people. And so being able to build a strong therapeutic reliance, which is underpinned by a spirit of compassion and partnership and respect without judgment, tends to make it a safe place where people start to explore those things that are hard to change. Here's some things we know about MI. From the graph I showed you with lots of colours about different areas, it works for lots of different things. It can be applied in brief or longer term ways. Treatment outcomes tend to have good durability, and it's able to be learned by a whole range of people. Okay? The quality of it's not dependent on how long you spend at university. Some of the things it's not, because it's worth being really clear that while I like MI, I'm pretty interested in it, it's not always for everybody, and it's not always for every kind of issue that you might face. So that's really helpful to know too. And so we need to be clear about that. MI owes a lot to person-centred counselling and the work of Carl Rogers, but it's a little different in that MI is very specific in its approach, that we're using it to help a person achieve a particular outcome. And we want to help them move in that direction. Person-centered therapy might move more where the person wants to move themselves rather than having an explicit focus on a particular goal. It's one of the key differences. But it's also worth thinking about when it might not be too helpful. And so we need to be mindful that if people are acutely unwell, maybe MI is not what we'd be looking at the time. If people are at high risk of suicide, again, we might not be thinking MI for evoking from the person if they're having trouble engaging in those conversations. Maybe in family violence situations, we want to exercise some caution, particularly when we think about one of the key purposes of motivational interviewing, as I'll talk in a minute, about resolving ambivalence about change. And I think perhaps an easy example to connect it might be pregnancy help. You know, we don't want to be evoking necessarily one direction or the other, influencing decisions, which we typically aim to do in a conversation. People come to us with a goal. I want to achieve X in my life. And we'll get a bit of a play with that in a minute. When you think about one of your own goals, something small that you'd be happy to work on in the group. But this might be a different scenario. And so the concept of equipoise is one that we would want to be mindful of too. Because as you'll hear me describe shortly, the idea in MI is to get the person talking more about why they would want to make changes, how they could make changes, what resources they would have to make those changes, what help they would need, with the idea of moving the person in a particular direction and strengthening that talk about change so they move in that direction. But that's consensual because that's what we've said we were going to do and the person's come to us with that in mind. It might be different at times with some issues where we don't want to be leading towards a particular outcome. We want to just stay walking that tightrope to help the person explore everything that's going on, but not tipping things one way or the other. Have people seen the trends theoretical model, the cycle of change? Some early work of Prochaska and Clemente. It can be helpful in conceiving the change process. So some people are familiar. Let me just whiz around this really quickly for you. Pre-contemplation represents the idea that people actually like what they're doing, the way they're doing it, and they don't really see there's a problem with it. So many of our advertising campaigns about health or safe driving or what have you are really designed to give people information that will raise their awareness, that there might be risks associated with things they're doing. In contemplation, people are starting to tap into the idea that, you know, maybe what I'm doing is not the best thing for me. But don't worry about it, it's not going to affect me too soon, because ages away. And they might go back and forth. In preparation, people are starting to be a little more serious about their consideration of risk and thinking about what they might do. Action, obviously, they're starting to take some steps to do things about it. And maintenance, looking at how, if you stumble, you can get back up and keep going. And that people go round this process. Indeed, I saw an ad on the television just last night talking about quitting smoking. Did anyone see that? 1, 2, 3 tries that he'd had. He got cranky, so his girlfriend gave him a cigarette. So the idea being that if that's normal, you know, people they have a try and they learn about what works in change for them, and they learn about what doesn't, and they find better ways. But each time they try, they're actually taking a step forwards. We might promote that notion in motivation. You're kind of failing forwards. Yeah, you didn't do it now, but you've learned things about how to do it better next time. You've taken a step on the path. You're further along than you were. So we're kind of tapping into those good things about the person's experience and helping to reframe those as strengths. You might think about that as resilience. We talk about it as affirmations for people. You're recognising that because people we work with are often, you know, worn out, weighed down. And so helping them to see the strengths that they have got and the good things about what they've done can actually be really liberating and certainly helps to build a good relationship with them. Well, so when we think about MI, it's very much based in the skills and the things that we do that we can take responsibility for. Less about knowledge. And it's not just a set of skillfully used techniques or a framework and an idea that we would have, but critically in motivational interviewing, it's underpinned by a spirit or a set of values. So we could be using MI beautifully, or the techniques at least, but if we're not doing it in the spirit that underpins it, then it's not MI either. So I think sometimes maybe I could use the skills that I have about engaging people in conversations around change to sell cars or houses maybe. Sometimes I think about changing careers altogether. But see, that would be really serving me, wouldn't it? Yeah? Did I get that pose right? Is it right?
Sorry.
So I can multitask. But what we're talking about is serving the people that come to us for assistance, to do something positive or do something different in their lives. That is part of the spirit that underpins MI. And so it ends up feeling a bit like having a conversation with a person and really trying to elaborate on that meaning of change for themselves. I've got here one of the definitions that's put forward for MI, so that it's collaborative and goal-oriented. So we work with a person to work out what their goal is, not our goal. And we pay particular attention to the language of change, and you'll get a chance to practice what that might be like a little bit shortly. So we're aiming to strengthen a person's personal motivation, why it would be important to them, for their reasons. But we work at a specific goal because we need a specific goal so we can draw out more from them about why it would be important and how things will be better and what they would be able to do to achieve it. And in a sense, for me, that is the balancing of expertise. I might know a lot about mental health, or I might know a lot about the techniques and strategies that could be helpful, but I don't know anything about your life. I don't know anything about you and your hopes and dreams and desires and challenges unless I work in partnership with you. And that's really a big part of the spirit. Creating an atmosphere of acceptance and compassion. So let me talk with you a little bit about that. Well, partnership is very much that idea of working with somebody, not doing to them. That's a big part of our spirit in motivational interviewing. It's a collaboration of experts. Us as people that can know about perhaps mental health or behaviour change or what have you, and the person as an expert in their own life. So it can be a neat sort of fitting in my mind with some of the principles in recovery as well. Acceptance. So I'll come back to this in a little more detail. But compassion. Now, if people have had training or study in MI previously, you might note that as an addition to the spirit or values that underpin MI since the recent publication came out, 2012, with text revision. Does that seem strange in a healthcare setting? No. Not explicitly named up for how long? 20, 30, 40 years? Far too long, but saying front and centre, one of the key things that underpins our work is the idea of compassion. That we are engaging in a benevolent way with the idea of helping people move forward to make their lives better. So that would characterise our work if we're using MI. And that we're evoking. So we're drawing out from the person their strengths, their desires, their wisdom, and helping them to see things maybe differently in a way that can be helpful to mobilise towards change when we're resolving their ambivalence or the barriers around it. So let's talk about acceptance. At its heart, there's a recognition in the absolute worth of people, in the person in front of us. That a key part of acceptance is recognising someone's autonomy. That they're going to make their own decisions about their own life. We might be a partner and we might be helpful, but in the end, the person is going to decide to change or not. The person's going to make a decision about what they'll change and how they'll go about it. That we can't force people or make people to change. What we can control is what we do ourselves as a partner in that process. That we rely on accurate empathy. So demonstrating an understanding of the person's challenges, by listening and tuning in and reflecting back to them what we're hearing so they know that we've got it. And affirmation. Something about being able to affirm the strengths, the abilities, the characteristics of a person helps to strengthen and deepen our relationships. It often tends to remove fear of hostility or judgment, and something about being accepted, feeling worthwhile, just seems to make a difference to help people move forward. So we're looking to foster that in our relationship, in that relational environment with the person. And if you want to read some more, the causal effects of empathy are not small. So there's a lot of research around looking at it. I'll point you to 2 key points in some of that research. They looked at 2 ways of measuring empathy at the end of a session. They would get the therapist to rate how empathic they were, and they would get the client to rate how empathic they thought the therapist was. One of those ratings was highly correlated with predictions of change. You want to guess which one it was? Therapist? Indeed, they were surprised. The only rating of empathy that was linked to being a predictor of change was how empathic the client thought the therapist was. That makes sense, doesn't it? And now we have research to show that. Lovely. So this is about the time that I'm going to stop doing so much talking and get you guys to do a bit of work. You don't have to share this thought with the room at this stage, okay? Or at any stage if you don't want to. But I want you to think about a problem, something maybe that's been hard for you to change. Perhaps you're in 2 minds about it. It doesn't have to be a big thing. But maybe something you've tried, and if you knew how difficult it was, if your peers knew how difficult it was, you might be a bit embarrassed to say it. And when you think about perhaps going to someone to get help to make that change, what are the kind of characteristics that you would want in that person? The person you seek out to help you. Sorry.
Honesty?
You want them to be honest? Okay.
Supporting.
You don't want to be judged? Okay.
Supporting.
You want them to be supportive?
Sense of humour.
I beg your pardon?
Sense of humour.
Okay. You want a sense of humour?
I want them to have some practical ideas about it to help me.
Yeah, you want them to know what they're doing. Okay. So we want them to be skillful in that area too, yeah? Anything else?
To have the time
Okay.
to listen.
To listen to your point of view? Yeah.
Kind,
Okay.
not making assumptions.
Right. So I want to listen, check things out. So those are all the things we would want. So part of what we'd encourage you to do is, well, are we like that in our engagement with people? Because we would strive for that if we're using MI. And thinking also about what are the things that mean sometimes we're not like that person in our engagement. And what might we do about that? If we want it for ourselves, how could we be that best version of ourselves then in our engagement with others? And I think MI's got some useful ways of helping that to happen, keeping a focus on the spirit and values, but also looking at how we might use some of the techniques as we move forward. Well, let me just put you back in touch with this idea. It's another definition, a more practical one. It's a person-centred, that's kind of handy given the theme of the conference, isn't it? Style of counselling that addresses our common challenge about ambivalence. Does anybody, you know what I mean when we talk about ambivalence? That feeling 2 ways about something at the same time. Do you ever get to the point where that's so uncomfortable? You're kind of right there and you're like, it pops into your head all the time. You go, oh, I really need to do this. I'm a bit busy. We're back and forth all the time, and the more it comes into your mind, the more pointed and uncomfortable that becomes. I mean, that's pretty powerful if we can connect to it, because it tells us that change process has already started for the person. What we'd be working with them is tipping them in one direction rather than the other. And sometimes our values are important in that. There's 2 ways typically that we resolve that ambivalence. We do something that fits with what we hope to get to, and we start to move down that path of change. Or we decide perhaps, oh, you know what, it's not that important, I think I'll just stay where I am. Yeah? So that kind of the 2 things. There's this idea of a set of scales, when we talk about MI being goal directive, the person's goal, and we are looking to shape and evoke and then strengthen the language we hear from them that indicates change has begun, and looking at those reasons. One of the difficulties that we have, of course, is that we know, people heard of this phenomenon, the writing reflex? Our desire to solve problems, to be helpful, to do something useful for the people that we serve. Turns out it's actually quite a strong trait amongst people that work in this kind of industry. What a surprise. What happens when our desire meets someone's ambivalence?
We
Okay?
shut them down.
We might well do, absolutely. And one of the outcomes is that we get resistance, don't we? And MI thinks about resistance as ambivalence under pressure. And it's impacted by what practitioners do. Here's how you can get it. We can advocate, not for the person, but for a particular point of view, a particular outcome that may not be what the person's seeking. Moralise, warn, criticise, and take that role of the expert. I'm not saying we don't have expertise, but taking the role of being the expert, knowing better, that gets in the way. And here's how some of it happens. MI says there's kind of two outcomes that happen as a result of the interaction. One is that we get resistance, which can be discord, so arguing. You ever engage the person that feels like an argument? And only one person, the rest of you are doing pretty well. Happens to me. But you know, what that means to us is something's going on in our relationship that we need to pay attention to, and we need to repair it. And we kind of come back. Or the person has sustained talk. And that's where they talk more about why it's important not to change. What are the problems with change and why I should keep doing what I'm doing? That's sustained talk. Natural, normal, we're going to get it. So we want to ask about it, acknowledge it, but then we also want to shift the person to thinking about, but we're here talking about this because you also want things to be different. Tell me about that. And so now we're leading the person, directing them to talking about, you know, if it's desire, ability, you know, my life sucks.
Is it just getting, what you're talking about there is like getting people out of that comfort zone and moving into the next phase?
It's moving along in that change process, yeah. And that's what we're looking particularly, you know, because we don't insert motivation, we need to draw it from the person. And the only way to do that is to get them talking about what they want, how things could be better, how they could be different. Or what sucks about the current situation. That's change talk too, but it's kind of like subtly different. And then strengthening it so that it actually moves more to people saying, I'm going to give you a quick example. Just three volunteers. 1, 2, and 3. Perfect. All right, so you know your numbers, 1, 2, and 3. If I said, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And you said, so think about it. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And you could say, yep, I'll give it my best shot. You'd say, I'll give it my best shot.
Best shot?
You'll give it a best shot. You say, I will. So do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I will.
I will. Do you hear a difference in the language? Yeah? So language has strength too, doesn't it? And what we're talking about doing is getting people to move more to this commitment. This commitment, I will do that, I will tell the truth. Nah, I'm not so convinced. Your testimony. I mean, what if I'd ask the question, you know, would you take me to be a lawful wedded husband? I'll think about it. I'm going to go with option 3. That's more definite. Okay? So we're listening for that language and we're trying to get and strengthen it as we go. Okay. All right. I'll get you to think, it doesn't have to be the same thing you were thinking about before, but think about something that might be ambiguous. A lot of people have things. Not something that you're really definitely doing at the moment and, you know, kicking goals with, but it might be something like going to bed a bit early, getting a bit of exercise, drinking a bit more water, having more alcohol-free days, somebody suggested the other day when I was talking to them more chocolate-free days, but I just said that was ridiculous. I'm not having that goal in my workshop. Okay? So if you could just get in touch with something like that you'd be comfortable sharing perhaps with the person next to you. Okay? Does that sound okay? Not whether or not you want to leave your spouse and kids. Whether you're going to have to launch a raid on the ATM after you leave here. Okay? Not that stuff. So when you think about that, okay, we'll just take a couple of minutes. You will have a chance to be in both roles, the speaker and the helper. Okay? The helper is going to start off by asking, so guys, tell me what it is you're in two minds about changing. Or what's your goal? What do you want to work on? However you want to phrase it, because you need to own the language and the approach, okay? And when you tell me, so when Vicky tells me, if you don't mind telling me, I'll hold for her.
Yeah, well, yes, I do actually.
Did you mind? Okay. That's totally fine. Is there someone else who wouldn't mind? Yeah.
I want to stop spending money.
You want to stop spending money?
So much money.
Okay, so here's how it works. Well, you know, I'm going to tell you, that's a really great idea because there's so many things that you can do, okay? And I'm going to tell you maybe 3 benefits. One of the best ways that I've heard people talk about it to save money is to get like a plastic piggy bank. Okay, now I reckon that would work for you. So not only are you going to tell them why it's important, you're going to tell them what strategy they should use to fix it based on your experience, okay? And then if the person says, sorry, what's your name? Jen says, oh yeah, but, or no, and that's not even work for me, you say, repeat what you said, but maybe just a little bit louder, okay? To help her understand how important it is. Now, just to be clear, this is a non-contact exercise. May not be what you normally do. Try not to sneak in any reflections and your usual great counselling skills, okay? It's not MI, but I just want to kick things off like this if you don't mind. I'll give you about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, and then I'm going to ask you to swap roles so you can get your own back on the other person, okay? Okay. If eye rolls could kill, I think we probably wouldn't have got to the second half of that exercise. Just tell me quickly, a few people, if you don't mind, what was that like as the person who had the... let's start that way. What was it like to be the helper in that role?
Horrible.
Yeah.
Okay, felt uncomfortable for you?
I really like the way it
Yeah. It was good. There's our treatment program. Okay, we know what to do. We've got plenty of good things to say.
As much as it felt really bad, I was quite shocked at how easy it was to be really nasty.
Okay.
And how and really override.
You're right. So you're a high achiever when it comes to exercise. Yeah, it's a good chance for us to share our expertise. Imagine we were talking about you could be quitting smoking. It'd be good advice we were giving, wouldn't it?
I think we really do want to help. It's like we know what's worked for us or what's worked for other people.
Yes.
So without asking permission to share that,
Yeah.
we've just said it.
Yep. Absolutely.
It felt more like a dictator role. I'll
Okay.
tell you how to live your life, what to do, how to do it, when to do it,
Yeah.
without actually...
And did you like that when you were the person?
I've been married for 10 years, I'm quite good at telling people what to do.
How many people have you been married to? Yeah, so it's easy, to slip into that expert trap, to let our writing reflex take over. And it could be good evidence-based information we're giving. They might be tried and tested effective strategies. Being practitioners, we're probably well informed. There might be a great treatment regime we've come up with. The problem is, it doesn't fit that person's life. It doesn't honour their autonomy, does it? So just to be really clear when you're leaving today, that is not MI. So what also happens is that we take the role that leads us down a path to argue. How quickly did it take for that to turn into an argument? For the person to talk about all the reasons why. Who did that as the person with the behaviour change goal? Did you start explaining? the eye rolling head tossing I got from you, because that was just beautiful. Like, okay, I see people line up. Others was tuned out. So you want to say something? What was that like? Anybody want to sign up for that therapy? No, okay. The other difficulty that happens for us too is that when we think about ambivalence about change as being two sides of a scale, well, we know that there's also two scripts there. One is to talk about all the reasons you can't change. The other is to talk about why it's important and what you can do differently. If we take the why it's important and what you can do differently script, what does it leave for the person? It just leaves them with all of the reasons that you can't change. And since we know that as people hear themselves talk, they learn what they believe, or actually strengthening sustained thought. Now, we need to get people telling us those things because they're all the barriers. They're all the hard things we need to understand. So it's okay to have conversations about that, but if we want change, we also need to be able to shift it so the person's telling us about the other side of ambivalence, which is change talk. So sometimes we need to get out of the way. And MI helps us to do that. This time, in your pairs, I want you each to have a turn again as the person with the behaviour change goal and as the helper. But as the helper this time, I want you to ask these questions that I've put up there. When you find out what it is, it might be the same thing, might be different. Why would you want to make this change? You'll ask that question. And then you'll say, on a scale from 0 to 10, how important is it for you? I'll leave this slide up, you can read it verbatim if you want, to make the change. When they give you a number, or they say a little bit or a lot, or however people describe it, you're going to ask them, well, why are you, for example, a 3 and not a 0? Okay, you're going to ask the question in that way. What are your best 3 reasons to make the change? How might things be better if you succeeded? And then I want you to kind of summarise and reflect and just kind of pull the person's answers together and give that back to them as a summary. And once you've provided the summary, I want you to ask this question. Hearing all of this, what do you think you'll do now? Would that be okay to do that? All right, let's take the same sort of time, maybe a couple of minutes each. 1.38 minutes. Is anybody comfortable to just tell me what that was like that time as the practitioner, the helper, asking the questions?
So much more nice.
Okay, it felt more comfortable for you?
Yeah, much more comfortable.
Yep.
Felt heard.
Okay.
Felt like she's listening to me.
Okay, they're quite different. Very receptive.
I felt more of a positive energy than,
Okay.
yeah.
So there was still a lot of energy, but it was a bit different.
Yeah.
It's a free conversation between the two of
Okay.
us.
Oh, yeah. Much more like
A
an
conversation.
equal shared conversation. Lovely.
I actually got a result
Okay.
in terms of an answer to the question that we put forward.
Yep.
Something that's actually happening. And yeah, we very quickly went, okay, identified the problem.
Okay. So something was a bit freer and you were able to come up with something to do. Anyone else want to comment there?
And I got more motivated, like it felt like the answer was coming from inside me rather than from the outside saying I had to do this. It was more like I have to do this rather than you have to do this.
Yeah, right. So really your reasons came out
Yeah.
and strengthened through that conversation.
And,
Yeah.
and as the other person, she was my therapist as well, and I felt the same way. You know, I felt much more motivated by the end of the conversation, which really spoke to the style.
Yeah, lovely. Perhaps one more and then I'll ask about the other side.
I almost talked myself into it at the end because she did a really good summary and given this, and I'm sort of saying yes, I'll do this.
Yep. So she wasn't telling you reasons, they were your reasons.
My reason, yep.
Yeah, so just reflecting them back really.
I wanted to tell him.
Okay, so it was hard to stay out of it,
Yep.
but look at the impact when you did.
Yep.
Tell me what that was like as the person talking about their issue.
Didn't feel judged or like,
Okay.
and well, just do it then. If that's what you want to do, just do it.
No,
Like,
no,
it took
sort of
into
no
account
pressure or
what your,
judgment.
yeah, it took into account what your circumstances were and why it's different.
Okay, so much better fit with your life.
Yeah.
Still felt vulnerable. You're still opening up
Okay.
about something that you know you haven't already been able to solve yourself.
Yep. Will it feel safer too?
Yeah, it's still, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like you were having a conversation you usually have in your own head, but you're actually having it with someone else.
Yes. And saying it out loud. Yeah, not. Isn't that funny? Because when we did the other exercise, since hearing that, the person's had that argument in their head hundreds or thousands of times already, because they're an expert at it. So if you're trying to argue and press against that, you have no hope. They're an expert. They can probably have that argument without even listening to you. Yeah, one more.
Oh, just that I felt like it actually opened out the problem for me
Okay.
and helped me to see it more clearly and in perspective.
Right, yeah. Wow. Now, one more back.
It takes away the work. It makes it easy. It takes away the work. It
Okay.
makes it easy.
Yep.
They're doing the work.
Yes. Yeah. And telling us all the really important things that we need to know to be helpful. Beautiful. So that's giving you a flavour in a sense of what MI is much more like. I mean, in itself that wouldn't necessarily be MI, but it gives you a better idea about it. Just quickly, MI has a framework, okay? So this might be helpful for you in understanding what we're doing with some of the skills that you've just been practicing. Our very first idea is to engage with the person, okay? So engaging is the relational foundation for all of our work together. Often about things where we know, even with what might seem like simple things, the person feels vulnerable. So it helps us to create a safe place for them to express what's going on without judgment. And that just seems to make it easier. Here are some examples just to give you a touch. You know, the client might say, I'm not really bothered, we've all got to die of something. My reply to this person, things are kind of overwhelming or hopeless right now. You're not sure things will get better even if you try. So I'm trying to connect and show the person that I'm working to understand their point of view and the challenges. That's empathy. Okay, looking to build a relationship without judgment. Focusing. So we need to find out, first of all, does the person want to change something or not? And if they do, what actually is it that they'd like to work on? And there might be lots of things that people have going on. So part of our focusing might be just trying to clear things up. Exactly what the issue is or how many issues there are, and bring it into focus. Maybe even prioritise them before we can pick something particular to work on. That might be what we've got here. There seems so much to do, I'm pretty busy, I don't know where I'd start. It's hard to think of doing anything new right now. What are the things that might need to change? This is my question. Might need to change. So not what I'm pressuring you, but just tell me what's on your plate. So I'm going to get a bit of an agenda for that person now, aren't I? Evoking. We can't evoke unless we have a particular goal in mind. It's sort of sensible, isn't it? This is logically comes next. Evoking and then differentially strengthening change talk. When I get change talk, when you tell me how things could be better and what you could do about it, I've got to get you to tell me more. They were all evoking questions that you asked to get the person talking. And just in that couple of minutes, you saw how important and powerful that was for some people. Well, there's my diet, my blood pressure. I guess I could lose some weight. Then there's the doc always banging on about quitting smoking. So that's quite a bit. If just one thing were to change, how might things be better for you? So that's sort of envisioning how things could be. There's one example of an evoking question to get the person talking more. And then planning. And usually we're pretty solid on this stuff. We get good training. We can still use the same spirit, but when it's a freer conversation, the person knows what they want to do. They're saying, look, I want to do something about that. How am I going to go about it? Well, they start to make a plan. We know that energy that we have to put in kind of leaves and you get more momentum. That's when we're going to talk about planning. Well, I guess I could lose some weight. This is a truck driver's eye I was working with. That'll be good. I'll be more comfortable, and I do like to look good for the ladies. So, well, you've got to give your fans what they want. But what could you do to lose weight? So now he's going to tell me. We're moving beyond to the next phase. And so in MI, when we get momentum, when we move from that preparatory stage to saying, I will, this is how I'm going to do it, it tends to feel more like going downhill. That's when we're planning. We're basing it on engaging. And sometimes if we miss the point and we jump in too early, oh, you want to quit smoking? Well, no, not really. Okay, we need to just come back and engage, or come back and clarify the goal. So while they look like they're linear, they're not. They're more recursive, up and down, in seconds or through a session. So it's kind of like a dance. We move with the person, keeping time with them, but clearly keeping in mind they've said they want to go there. So we're going to go this way, and we're going to go this way, wherever we go, but we know we're still working on moving in that direction. And that's how I think a bit about MI and summarise some of the challenges that we might face. Because a person might think that the goal is not important, or they might think that it is important but they're not sure how to do it, or it is important and they know how to do it but there's just so much stuff in the way they need to wait a few weeks till their barriers are out of the way and then move on. So I'm thinking about all of those things, if that's helpful. This slide will be on the handouts available off the website too if you want to have a look at that. And that leaves us with anywhere between sort of 7 to 11 minutes for a demo if you want to do that. Do you want to? Well, did you have to?
No, she wanted.
You want? Okay, so let me set this up very, very quickly. I'm happy to have a conversation. We've never met. I don't know that it's a big room. One of the things that sometimes happens is we start talking about something simple. You might find that you make some connections that might be a little deeper. At any time, if you don't want to go on, you just say stop. I'll certainly honour that. What I would ask the rest of the people in the room too is to honour that as well. I'm happy to take a few questions at the end, but what I guess I would ask is that you don't ask questions while we're having a conversation, and then if you're happy to, we'll get some questions at the end.
Yep.
Does that sound okay? Could we go to the front? I'm going to sit down. Okay. The people kind of can see. I'll be a bit.
Yep.
First of all, and thank you very much for being brave enough to do this. Can I just start by asking you what it is that you're in two minds about changing?
Quitting smoking.
Giving up smoking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's not, I think, the quitting smoking. I think it's the putting on the weight is, I know I want to quit smoking, but I'm scared of getting fat again. So,
Okay.
I don't know.
So you've got some real concerns that there'll be side effects.
Yeah.
And that happened before?
Yeah.
Okay. And you've had to work on them too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So what are the kind of things that make you want to, what would get out of quitting in particular?
My bank balance would be a really good start.
Costs
Health.
going up.
It's way too expensive. My health. And it's a really good procrastination tool, and I don't need any help with procrastination.
Oh, okay.
So that would be good to get rid of that particular method.
Just tell me a little bit more about how procrastination impacts on you.
Heaps. In every way. It's a very useful tool for avoiding life.
Yep.
I know I use smoking as a method of avoiding people. Kids, work, responsibilities. It's a good excuse for getting out of the office or out of the house, or out of the lecture, or out of anything really. I know that's become one of my procrastination tools.
Okay, so I'm just kind of having this vision now of you smoking, blowing smoke at people you want to go away. Not like that.
It's a little bit like that, because I know when the kids were younger, particularly when we became aware of not smoking around people and passive smoking, it was like, oh, thank God. I'd go outside and the kids would all follow me out. It's like, go away, I'm smoking.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, time out.
Oh, okay.
So
it's worked for you in many ways for a long
It's
time.
worked really, really well. Because everyone everyone started quitting smoking. It was like, yeah, no, everyone's going away.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'm out here on my own. Wow, this is amazing. I
And you
don't
get
like
it-
people that much sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So having time for yourself and a bit of space is actually
Yes.
quite important.
It is very much important,
Yeah.
yes.
So if you're going to quit, you need to think about that
Yes.
and how you go about it.
Yeah, and that's difficult if you know, unless you're a hermit. It's not always easy to find time out.
So it's not just about people though, it's also about some of the work that you're
Time
doing.
out from everything.
Rightio,
Mm.
yeah. It's a space from people and the tasks that,
Yeah, responsibilities,
Okay.
all that sort of stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
And even though it serves a powerful purpose for you and there's potential side effects,
Yeah.
you're still thinking about doing it. Tell me about that.
I think it's because my brain goes, I have to.
Okay,
So I'm still struggling with the want to.
rightio.
But I'm not sure why I struggle with the want to.
What are the things, firstly, if you don't mind, the have to bits? What pops into your head there?
Health.
Health
Health
and
and
money.
finances.
Those are the big ones.
Yeah.
Well, anything particular about health or just general?
I have an autoimmune disease, so smoking's a big no-no.
Big risk of it.
And it's not getting better, so,
Yeah,
you
so,
know, there's good incentive to quit.
yep, and you kind of beat yourself up a bit about that
Oh,
regularly, I reckon. It's on your mind. Yeah, okay.
yeah.
And so there's the have to stuff, and then there's the not sure if you want to, kind of just in the back of that too.
That's okay, just breathe. Yeah, I think it comes back to something you said before about that resistance. You know, when everyone tells you you have to do something, you just go, screw you.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, you don't tell me what to do.
It's my life.
It's my life, yeah. So, you know, there's that loss of control, and then it's like, you know, you have that other part of your head going, but you really want to do all these things that everyone's saying you have to do, and it's like, shut up. You know,
This is
I'm not
all in
listening to you.
your-
It's like, they've told me I have to, so, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah. And
so
no one
yeah,
likes being told
Of
what.
course I don't, no.
So you want to come to it in your own time for your own reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it's trying to work out, well, okay, so why am I resisting it? You know, seriously, you're not 14 anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to do this whole authority thing, you know, resisting.
Okay.
Mm.
So maybe you could give yourself permission to stop having that argument.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's you. It's not anyone else telling you what to do. Okay.
Mm.
And we'll be okay with your big stop.
Yeah, that's fine. That's all right.
Can I just ask you first of all to thank Annie for being here? What I'd like to do, if it's okay, if you want to, you don't have to, but I want to give you the first opportunity to make any comments about that 5-minute conversation that we had.
It's the first time I actually feel like I've talked to somebody about this particular issue and felt heard.
Okay.
You know, I've had doctors and neurologists who do the whole very much, you know, have you quit smoking yet? Have you done this? Have you done that? You know, concerned friends, all the rest of it. And a lot of, I suppose, undervaluing
Okay.
that word, Jeff.
Yeah.
Undervaluing
Big
my
value.
concerns.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, it's like, but you've still got to quit smoking, and it's like you're not hearing what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm,
And not being heard was a big problem for
I
you.
think so, yeah.
Anything else you want to add to that?
Thank you.
Okay. If it's all right, I'm going to ask the group if
No.
they wouldn't want. So do people want to ask any questions about what they just saw happen? And then I might make some concluding remarks before we
No,
finish.
but I will make a statement. You are me.
Yeah.
You know, that's,
You can
you
learn,
made
yeah.
me cry. Yeah,
You
exactly
can
the
learn,
same.
yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Anyone else?
So, as Will said, you got a bit upset. That's obviously very real for you. What you just experienced, was it fake or anything like that? Was very real. And how do you think that will help you? Do you get what I mean? Like,
So was it useful just having that conversation?
Where was it? Will you walk out of here sighing a sigh of relief?
No, I think I'd probably need another good hour or two conversation around
Can I come on? We just got an idea of how deep this challenge goes, and I didn't want to go any further in front of everybody, so I acknowledge that. But what I would say is, look how quickly we got to something which was really personal. I mean, I didn't expect that. I might not have asked you to come out if you had. But obviously,
I had suspected it was going to happen when you asked me, because I went, okay, yep.
But see, I really didn't do much except maybe be someone that feels safe to talk to. And all of that work, all of the things that were happening for Annie in her head. She was making the connections. She was thinking about why it was meaningful and what was purposeful, and I was kind of connecting to that a bit. And we could go further with that conversation. But I guess that's something which is a bit like what our life is like. And did you see a couple of very particular things I did where I started to ask about what's in it for you? The sustained talk, because it serves a purpose. We don't do anything without a reason. So that helps me to understand Annie a little bit. And then did you see how I also then shifted the conversation to the other side? Knowing how hard it is and it serves a purpose and everything, but you're still thinking about doing it, and that's asking about sustained talk, moving towards her goal. That's a bit of the dance, if you like. You got to see that?
We also validated her fears, which I think helped her a lot.
Right, yeah. So that seemed to put a bit of this.
Another thing you did, which Ring actually pointed out to me, was you mimicked her body language. I don't know, did you do that intentionally? Or?
You know, I've been doing a bit of training recently. That's the third time I've had that comment in about a month, about body language and tone and cadence of voice. So I'm not aware of it, is a simple answer. But that would be another workshop, wouldn't it? Talk about the impact of mirror neurons and the... But yeah, no, thanks though. But clearly it's helpful. Anybody else?
Yeah, you actually, just watching you do that, and in your retrospect of the seminar, at every point we've all done a part of what we're talking about today. And it's just underlying, I suppose, and just bringing it to the forefront of making it more of a thing and being aware of what you're doing.
Yeah. Just using many of the skills you will all already have in a particular way. Okay. Again, could you thank Annie for that? Okay. That's 12:30. Are we going to lunch?
Yeah, it's lunch now until 1:30, and then it's 1:30 the next one of the workshop.
Okay. Let me just finish up by saying a couple of concluding things. I get a bit excited about the opportunity to engage with people. If this is helpful, I really hope it is. If you want to learn more about it, it's probably worth pursuing. For me, always a privilege to connect with people who are engaged in working to make people's lives better, and I just thank you for your participation and engagement today.
Thank you.